Talked about how we can think deeply about characters. Remember, we built that anchor chart up there. Ben 2, we're working here, investigating how the setting impacts the characters. Today, we're going to add one more technique. We're going to think about how the characters specific characters or groups, we're going to think about how they can impact the setting. So it's like a push and pull. The setting can shape characters. Characters can also shape the setting. That's what we're going to think about today. Now, as I get into this, before we start with the first part of the read aloud, I want you to remind each other where the story left off. So take a minute, tell the person next to you where we ended the fight. Okay, move closer to the mic.
He was very terrified.
All right, so where were we?
Sitting.
Where did we end the story? Remember Mike said, I heard you want to fight me. Right? And Will said, I do. I'll meet you after school. Will said, I'll be there. Tough guy. So where we left Will, right? Outside, real tough. Inside, scared. And we talked about how characters are torn. This is what we saw in Will, right? He's got this suit of armor, but inside, not very tough, scared. So, here we go. As I read, I want your notebooks open, and I want you to try to connect parts of the story with anything on our anchor chart. Okay, so we're focusing on the characters and the setting. And we have different ways that you can analyze them up there. So as I read to you, I want you to think about characters and setting in this story, and then jot some things down that come to mind. Because after each reading, I'm going to ask you to share your thoughts, okay? We good to go? Are there any predictions before we start? What's going to happen? Because Will thought unconsciousness, right? What's that? Knocked out. Hospitalization. Here comes the ambulance. And then reconstructive surgery. Doctor's got to rebuild his face. Okay, so today we're going to find out what happens. What I'm hoping, what I would like to see is they avoid the fight. That's what I'm hoping for as the leader. What are you guys hoping for? You want to see blood?
No. Yes.
Oh no, there's a girlfriend too. Trouble. So here we go. During my walks from class to class, I discovered that most of the 8th grade had taken sides, and that my side consisted of me, a foreign exchange student named Hans, and 2 girls whose hearts I had not yet broken. The rest of my peers were massed behind Mike, eager to see me put my place once and for all. The last class of the day was shop. This is like tech or design thinking. We were all told by our teacher, Mr. Bledsoe, to work on our special projects. My special project was a skateboard, so I began sanding its nose and trying with all my might not to think about the fight. It is said that there's nothing like working with wood take one's mind off a problem. But it could also be said that there's nothing like a problem to take one's mind off working with wood. No matter how intensely I sanded the nose of my skateboard, the fight was always with me. And the air around me seemed as thin as alpine or Himalayan hair. I tried to tell myself that in 3 hours it would all be over. That I'd be in my own house, in my own room, and the fight would be a memory. But 3 hours would not be enough if I lost the fight. A month would not be enough if I lost. Not enough to heal my humiliation. What would be enough? I asked myself. 6 months? A year? Yes, a year. That'd be enough. I'd give it a look back on this day and smile, or perhaps laugh. In a year, the fight would be a distant memory, and I would be a different person with different friends and different reasons to feel confident and proud. So I closed my eyes and asked God to please make it a year later, to please take me out of this year and place me in the next. With my eyes closed, I almost believed that time was racing past me, that eggs were being laid, chicks were being hatched, growing plump, laying their own eggs, and dying. Unfortunately, when I opened my eyes, I knew that I was still 13, still in shop class, and that the fight was waiting to be fought. Thank God anyway. Guessing I had prayed the wrong way, prayed the wrong prayer, looked at the clock, and saw that I had 10 minutes left. I had not even tried to sand my skateboard those last 10 minutes. Instead, I drifted into a pleasant state of suspended animation, where there was no joy, no fear, no pride, no regret. During this time, my pulse rate and respiration dropped. The blood in my veins slowed to a crawl. I believe I even stopped aging. And then the bell rang. Time was up. So, turn and talk, share your thoughts. What'd you write down? What do you want to write down right now? What did you hear that connects to something we practiced to think about characters and settings and how they interact? Okay, turn and talk. You can write stuff down now if you were just focusing on the story as I read it. All right, so what I'm noticing as I walk around is that some of you are kind of jumping on this idea I put up here with internal and external. And we see that Will is still keeping up this external toughness, right? He's still wearing that suit of armor. Okay? And we also know that he's really scared. Okay, so in this section, all those ideas we had the other day are confirmed, okay, through Will's inner thinking. When I read, another thing jumped out at me, something I didn't think about earlier, okay? And in this section, I noticed that another player comes to this game. Right? There's another force acting on Will and on this fight. I'm going to read a couple lines again, and I want you to tell me what that force could be. Okay? Here we go. During my walks from class to class, I discovered that most of the 8th grade had taken sides, and that my side consisted of me, a foreign exchange student named Hans, and 2 girls whose hearts I had not yet broken. The rest of my peers were massed behind Mike, eager to see me put in my place once and for all. So, what is this new force? girls. Sure. The girls are a powerful force and can exert a lot of influence on a character. Okay? But in this case, the girls are part of what? Related to popularity? What else? Well, what I'm thinking is that the new force that's coming into this story is the group. All right? Is a group. So we have a very small group that Mike or Will realizes my group is only me, this foreign exchange student Hans, and 2 girls. And everyone else, all of his other friends, are hoping that Mike beats him up. Right? So as we get further into the story, I want you to think about how the group influences the setting. Okay? Now, we're going to read on. We're going to be thinking about group dynamics. Okay? And we're going to talk more about this. So as we read, you're going to be taking notes about this question. Right? How do group dynamics play a part or influence a place? Okay? We were to meet in front of the school. When I got there, I saw a crowd of 50 or 60 people awaiting my arrival. Under different circumstances, I would have been pleased by the turnout. But the hopelessness of my position offset whatever theatrical lift I might have left. I did, however, smile. Right? This should jump out at you. I was, after all, the other half of the act, and was not about to look somber or scared or penitent for anyone. I saw Mike Dichter standing 15 or 20 feet away, looking as menacing as ever. He fixed his eyes on me for a moment, then kissed his girlfriend, Linda Lieben. I had foolishly broken up with Linda 10 months before. But now, as Mike was kissing her, she looked at me as though she would have her revenge. And then, before I knew it, someone said, "Let's go." And everyone started walking to the park 2 blocks away. Strangely, I felt not like a boy on his way to a fight, but like a king on his way to the gallows. You know where the gallows are? You know there? It's like this. Right? Right? Like a king to be executed. So that's how he feels. These were not my classmates before me, but peasants in revolt. My wife had already been beheaded. My children sold for horses, and my servants set free. I tried to put everything in perspective, to assure myself that it was only a fight and that losing was no disgrace. And then maybe I wouldn't lose. Maybe I was one of those people who did not know his own strength until he was confronted. Maybe when I was facing Mike, some inherent, ancient instinct would propel me toward his throat and give me the strength of 10 men. My father was certainly a powerful man. My father, at certain times, was one of the most powerful and frightening men I knew. Up to that moment, all I thought I had inherited from him was his pride and his nose. But maybe, once I was standing face to face with Mike Dichter, I would discover that I had inherited his blind rage and lion heart. When we got to the park, a short discussion about the rules of the fight took place. First, it was decided that kicking and biting should not be allowed. Then that kicking should be allowed, but not scratching. During this time, I was standing by a stone water fountain, breathing slowly and wondering when the blood of my father and his father's father was going to show itself. I still couldn't summon enough rage or fury or indignation to make me want to fight Mike or anyone else. All I could do was hope that I was subconsciously feeling those things and was merely biding my time. A fight's a fight, I heard someone say. No sissy rules. The motion was contemplated, then carried. Everything allowed, no sissy rules. Should we take our shirts off, I asked, hoping to postpone things a little longer. Whatever, someone said. And with that, all decisions were made, and there was nothing for Mike and me to do but face each other and fight. Tim Hamilton, our referee, walked us to a clearing and told us to shake hands and fight whenever we were ready. For a moment, Mike and I just looked at each other. Then Mike crouched a little, I don't know why, and began to circle me. I knew I should move in and attack immediately, but I was rooted where I stood. Turn and talk. What's going on with this group? What's going on with group dynamics? How do they influence the fight?
I think the group is trying to ask tough questions. It's not really very right between the group's
Can you talk to them?
They're having conversations.
One case.
Yeah, very official. Not like it's like something like we should do that. Rules, like certain rules that they're maintaining as tough as
Or he just got weak heart.
What do you got there, Jake? Now, I'm hearing lots of good things. How the group kind of instigates this fight. So you know what instigate means? Huh? Right. So it's like the crowd, the 50 or 60 kids there, they really want the fight to happen. Okay, so they're going to do things to make sure they fight. To make sure that they don't say, oh, you know, fighting's not the best solution here. Maybe we should talk it out. Okay? And we get the idea that we have this phrase that we use sometimes to describe people in a group. And some people we call a bad apple. What's a bad apple? You know what that means? And so the bad apple here is the one that's saying, like, shouting out, fight. No sissy rules. Right? Scratch, bite. So it's just one person with a voice of that entire mob, that entire group of people. Right? And if that one person is evil, then the group kind of assumes some of those characteristics. Right? But if that person is good, right, they can make a big impact. Like you read a lot about people in history who stood up, who stood up and had an impact, who made an impact as individuals. Right? Like you read about Malala, I know, last year, Martin Luther King Jr. These people in history, right? These are individuals who made a huge impact all by themselves. Right? They stood up from the group and made a difference. Here in our story, we're seeing how that one voice can actually turn the whole group, right, and have a negative impact on the setting. Now, can somebody go check the air conditioner? It feels like it's not even on. somebody make sure that it's on Nengbang?
Oh, it's power mode. I made it power mode.
Right, but is it fan or Nengbang? Feels like a fan. Starting to sweat.
It's
It's the
Nenga.
fight.
It's Nenga.
It is?
Yes.
Can you lower the temperature? What temperature is it?
No, this is a power mode. It's 7시.
Just do it as normal. Ah.
Hurry up. Hey, Tom, stay. Tom, stay. Okay. Now, starting to sweat. I think it's the fight, because I know what happens. Now, this is the final reading, okay? We get the end here.
That's the story then.
Yeah. My question to you is, because we've got Mike, we got Will, we got the setting, and now we have the group that's come into the picture, right? And this mob of people. My question to you is, who's responsible for the fight? Who's responsible? What do you think? The referee? Well, who's responsible for the fight taking place?
Well,
Who started it? Will? So you might say Will. Remember earlier, Mike told his buddy Kevin that I can beat up Mike. Right? And Kevin said, I don't think you can. Mike's kind of big. And he's like, I don't care. I'll beat him up. So we saw that early in the story. Will said that. I also heard Will talk about, he describes himself and he says, talking and listening in my usual superior way. So I feel that Will, he says he can beat up Mike, and the way he talks is also kind of arrogant. Do you know what arrogant means? What's arrogant? Like Will, he's got a really high opinion of himself. Like, you? Right? He thinks he's really awesome. Okay? And we know that by the way he talks. So, a little bit, I think Will's responsible for this fight. Maybe he deserves it. But also, I know Mike is involved. I'm sympathetic to Will because I know about the setting. I know how important it is to be popular. And I know that he was determined to be popular as a 4th grader. I know all these things. As I read the end of the story, I want you to think about which one you think plays the biggest part. Okay? Okay. Then Mike crouched a little bit. I don't know why, and began to circle me. I knew I should move in and attack immediately, but I was rooted where I stood. Fight, someone said. And now Mike began to advance and kick karate style. The kick not only served to display his formidable kicking skills, but were also a superior defensive and offensive weapon. In order to get Mike, I would have to find some way to get around his kicks. And in order to do that, I'd have to be someone who knew how to fight. My only choice was to look unworried and back up, which is what I did. Mike, however, was advancing steadily, which meant that I could either continue backing up until I reached the bus stop on Santa Monica Boulevard, or stand my ground and see what happened. Pride demanded that I choose the latter, just in time for Mike to kick me in the thigh. I turned sideways to present a thinner target, bent my knees a little, and took a hard kick to the ribs. And then things began to happen very quickly. In an instant, Mike was on me, and my legs buckled, and we were wrestling to the ground. In an effort that I could prove that I could fight as dirty as anyone, I gingerly grabbed his groin and discovered that I had neither the will nor the strength to squeeze. So where did he grab him?
In the...
Right between the legs. Now, that's illegal in the UFC. Right? MMA. That's illegal. And it's Will's first move. Real funny, right? So, here we go. So that's how you want to play? Mike said, grabbing my groin a good deal less gingerly, and wrestled me onto my back. Somehow I was able to get out from under him, and a great deal of grappling, kicking, scratching, and punching ensued, while the crowd yelled for either Mike or me to do something that I could not quite make out. Then I saw blood on my shirt and wondered who was bleeding. Before I could find out, Mike was on top of me, and my arms were pinned under his knees. He was hitting me in the face very hard. Curiously, I hardly felt the punches. All I felt was the dull impact of the blows, and all I heard were the shrieks and hollers of the crowd, along with the thump, thump, thump of his fists hitting my ear, chin, forehead, and occasionally mouth. For some reason, I was very relaxed. Perhaps because I sensed that I was only getting what I deserved. After all, I had feasted on my own glory and egotism for 3 years. The check was bound to come. Kill him! I heard Linda Lieben cry. Kill him! So Mike reached back and hit me on the side of the head with the hardest punch he had thrown yet. Give, he said. I shook my head. Okay, he said, reaching back to kill me again. He repeated this 8 or 9 times. And after each punch, he said, give. And I said no, or shook my head, and he reached back again. And then, for an instant, I had had enough. For one brief moment, the blood of my father, and his father, and his father's father welled up within me. And I put my hands under my knees, lifted him in the air, held him there, and threw him off me. The crowd gasped. And for a moment, Mike looked surprised, even scared. I stood up to my full height, and the full height of my pride and dignity. But I did not know what to do next. I was no more willing to fight now than I had been before. And the moment passed, and my fury ebbed. And before I knew it, Mike was on top of me, picking up where he had left off. Soon I could not distinguish one punch from another, and my ears burned. The noises around me seemed to be coming from the other end of a hollow tube. I saw glimpses of faces, but I did not see friends or former friends. All I saw was a crowd. All I heard was a crowd's noise. I knew it was all over. The love notes, the phone calls, the envy, the adulation. Each punch robbed me of another friend, another heart, another follower. From here on out, it would just be me and my TV, and my memories of glory. And then one by one, or 2 by 2, the lights went out in my mind. And Mike's legs were around my stomach, and I couldn't breathe. Give, he said. I shook my head. He squeezed harder. Give? Why not? The last light in my mind said. All I'm giving him is the fight. So I gave. I gave him the fight, the love notes, the phone calls, the envy, the adulation, and the arrogant hull of who I had been. For a moment, I felt very light, almost weightless. Then, so, turn and talk. Share your thoughts. You might want to jot down some ideas. Who's responsible for this fight? Is it a bad apple? Is it the setting? Is it Will? Who's responsible? Who deserves the blame?
Everyone.
If you were the principal, who would you punish?
I think I would punish the person who started the fight. I wanted to continue bad actor. Because he was like the main one who was continually like, and maybe vice versa. Like saying bad comments.
Even you don't take care of that.
Tell me.
I think he just got knocked out.
Question 88.
What do you mean, found this story? Okay, now, students in the other class thought that Mike dies. Right, he doesn't die, he's knocked out. There are more adventures for Will in this book that we will get to read. What I want you to think about, and the reason we have this story here, is so that you can see, one, how the setting can influence what a character does, what a character says. We saw this, by the way, by Will changes from 4th grade to 8th grade. We also saw how the group can be a powerful force on the way we feel about a place. Because when you're thinking about how Will feels there are like 50 people in a circle, right? And these are his classmates, his peers, people he thought were his friends. Fight, 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 kill him. So we feel that the group, right, can add a lot of weight to the pressure that's already there. Right? In this case, it's negative. It's not always negative. Okay? So what we're seeing is that characters interact with the setting, and we can also have groups affecting the setting, or powerful people affecting the setting. Okay? Now, this is the thinking I want you to take to your books as you read today. All right? So think about, what are the forces on my character? Is there a group that also plays a role in the feeling of the place? Or a group that influences the way my character behaves? Is there a bad apple? Right? Is there a powerful leader? We didn't see a powerful leader here, but I told you before that the individual is also very powerful. And throughout history and in a lot of books, you'll see that one person can stand up and make a difference, like Harry or Katniss. So I want you to take that reading back to your desks today. Is there anyone that needs a new book? Or will need a new book over the weekend? Okay. I will meet with you right now.
Over the weekend.
What book do you need? Which number? Miss B said she might have the ebook, right? We'll check on her.
You're doing this.
She was in 5 minutes.
Last one.
So I